that would make it easy to create these long reads, then that would be great. So the idea is that you can have different types of rows. For instance, a headline, which is just one big chunk of content, or you can have, in this case, an article, which has something on the left and something on the right. And all this can be defined using grid systems. So rather than just saying this is full width, then this is actually like 12 columns. And let's just add an image here. So this is about budget, so let's take this guy. He is totally uncontrollable, not even the proper word. And then we want to start an article, and then we can just, you get the idea. We can add quotes, and over here we want some content, etc., etc. So that's the idea of the grid. So once we have this, let's just have some, get some content here. Ooh, la, la. And then let's have some loading from here. That ought to be a feature in Umbraco, right? You shouldn't really have to go here. A bit like Word, just type it and double tap. Okay, oops. Let's go back. And this. All good. So this is nice. Then we can preview it. And this is the responsive preview. So this is again using a grid system. This is how it looks on a full-scale computer. How does it look on mobile? Well, we can see that like this, different format, tablets, etc. And all this is also configurable. So for instance, let's say you're making something that also sends data to a in-store display or something. So people use Umbraco for that. You would also have some different views for that over here. And it's quite nice for editors to quickly be able to see, does this layout actually work or does it work? So that's another major improvement in 7.2. Here is going to cover all the details of the grid, so you should definitely check out this session. I have that on the slide in a moment. But just an example of what I talked about, what we're trying to do with the company, this all already influenced in 7.2. So we got new features in the grid thanks to feedback from our workshops. The UX got improved through the editor testing, and we made it easier to implement for designers and developers thanks to tests with them as well. But again, here we'll show you all the details of the grid in this session, so I'll spare you more details. Another thing I would love to talk about is sort of a Umbraco DNA, which is simplicity. So the name Umbraco is actually the Danish word for these. Actually, it's a spelling error, but you probably heard that story already. In Denmark, everybody calls these Umbracos, but they're really called unbreakos or unbreakable. I didn't know that. I googled, got a lot of results. I filed for the trademark. I got the trademark. I was like, yeah, I have the trademark for these keys. And then after 2 years, some guy made a blog post saying, with all the CMSs out there, I would never choose one with a bug in its name. But then again, it's a bit like Apple and the Macintosh, which was also incorrectly spelled. Later on, the official spelling of the Apple changed to the way that Apple spelled it. In Denmark, if you Google for unbreakable, it says, did you mean Umbraco? We're getting there. We get calls as well. Sometimes get these calls saying, I want to know the strength of a half inch. You just want to say 21. See a building collapse. Anyway, but I want to talk a little bit about simplicity. And rather than talking a lot, I want to demo it. So the idea with what I'm going to show you now is just a tiny couple of examples on how you can make a slightly easier editor experience. Using some of it using the built-in features, some of them maybe spend some time learning how easy it is to extend the Umbraco background. So, not everybody knows, but in Umbraco we have a soccer team, which actually we won one match. So pretty impressive. We organized a tournament, and officially we won. Unofficially, there is rumors that we got last. But just like North Korea, nothing official has come out. Anyway, so we want to have on this website we want to have some way of saying what's the current team, what's the squad. We have a lot of players down here as notes, so we can have fancy stats on them. So, for instance, Simon here, his numbers. How good is he? Because eventually we want to print cards. Anyway, so this is the first thing that springs to mind. So we have these text boxes, which is kind of cool. So you can be 2,000 in defending. It makes no sense. It can also be awesome, which would be a lie. So we want to have some way of managing this. So what we could do is we just make a slider, which not everybody knows because for some awkward reason it's not a default thing in the course. So we have a lot of great data editors, but not all of them are configured. So when you look at your document types and think, oh, this player I want to manage some skills, so maybe I can just do a numeric. I don't know. But there's actually a slider built in. You just have to configure it, which is really silly, but that's how it works. So let's say I want to create a new data type. I want to use the slider. Oops, not the tags. So the slider, and I'm just going to call this something. So I want to say you should be able to go from, let's say, 0 to 100. So that's the idea. Oops. 1 to 100. And increments in 5, that's fine. And it should be horizontal. We're just going to see this. So now, rather than my editor having to guess, how do we define these skills, we just swap this one out and use our something instead. And speaking of usability, you should call it something else than something. But now if I go back to Simon, I can actually say he is, pretty sure. So that's good. But anyway, just make sure that you know the different built-in types, and when you don't see them, go to the developer section and data type. Try to create some. You can't really create anything. Also, you can always create multiple versions of it. So you can have a slider that goes from 1 to 100, one that goes from 50 to 10,000. And the same with the rich text editor. You can actually create variants of the rich text editor with different buttons. Not everybody knows that. So that's one little tip. So another thing is, then I want to manage my squad. So I have this awesome multi-node tree picker. I can pick my teammates, which is great. And I can also change, so I can move Morten up. He's the goalkeeper. This really doesn't make any sense, does it? I mean, this is really bad usability. Instead, you could have something like this. So you can just pick your players. Suppose me and Per, dream striker team. Paul, the mature guy in the company, and put him as the goalkeeper. So you get the idea. And this is actually really easy to do. So let me just show you. If you know your HTML and JavaScript, it's quite easy to do something like this, because that's actually all it takes. So in Umbraco, to do this, I made a folder in Air Plugins. I called it Unicorn Editor, because the team is called Umbraco Unicorns. We have stickers. It gets you free peanut program. No, I wasn't supposed to say that. Anyway, so create a folder called Unicorn Editor. We put in a file called package.manifest, and here we say this should be a property editor. It should save JSON, and when you use it, it should just render this HTML file. And then we also have some JavaScript up here. And this HTML file is actually our editor, and it's quite ugly because I made it. It was a quick hack. But the idea is it's just HTML, it's some div tags with the different players on it. A little bit of Angular in the mix, but if you look at the code and go through it, it's actually surprisingly simple. So what happens is, once this editor loads, we load some CSS to make it look nice, and then we say, well, if there's no player selected already, then we create sort of a model that says there's a goalie, there's a striker, etc. And then we have this method, say add player, takes a position, and then it opens the content picker, which we already have. This is all it takes to open the content picker. And we set a start node, so we can actually define where do we find our players. And then we just return as data the ID of the player, which is the node, and the name of the node. So it's actually, it's 30 lines of code to create an editor like this. And again, you don't need Visual Studio, you don't need to compile anything to do something like this. So there's a ton of videos out there about how to create your own editors. And even if you don't consider yourself a hardcore developer, try some of the tutorials, you'll be surprised how easy it is. And it's actually also quite fun. Not saying that this is awesome usability, just saying it's fun. But this is the idea. Then the final thing is, we have this huge, we're a huge company now, so we only used to be 4 players, so it wasn't a problem. You could just have a tree view, but now we're too many, so let's use list views instead. So again, a feature in version 7, we can go to the document type and we can just say, well, this should be a list view instead. We'll just save this. And then if we go back here and refresh, and refresh this view, rather than this long tree, we get a little icon saying this is a list view, and now we get a nice overview of our players here. We can search if we have a lot of content. Just want to edit Shannon, I can just do this. If I want to create a new player, I get fast UI to do that for free with the list view. But when we look at the overview, all this sucks. So sort order doesn't matter. Last edited doesn't matter. Created by doesn't matter. I just want to know how fast they are. You can do that. It's a feature in 7.2, so you can actually, once you set this should be a list view, you can create a custom list view. Just clicking here, and you can edit it, and then I can say what columns do I want. I'm just going to remove these. Makes no sense. I just want the speed like this. Add that one. Page size looks good. Order by, yeah, fine. Just going to save this. Oh, need to give it a header. Should be slow. Save this, and now when I look at the list view, instead I get data that actually makes sense. It's also a small, it's actually a large enhancement in 7.2 that not everybody knows about. So bottom line here is, when I created this sample site, I spent less than half a day, going from a quite bad, typically fast-hacked Bravo editor implementation into actually being something where I had sliders instead of text boxes. I had a nice list view of my players. I had a nice editor where I could select my squad. And you should do the same in your implementation. Go that extra mile to make sure that your editors get a great experience. Make sure you budget it. It's quite easy to convince clients why they should invest in this, because every time you spend an hour polishing the editor experience in Bravo, their editors will probably spend 100, 200 hours over the lifespan of the site. So, even tiny improvements in the editor experience is really a great return for the client. So again, sum up. With Bravo, eventually, we always talk about, how do you develop your site, how do you improve, etc., etc. But it comes down to what is in Bravo. It's actually a tool to make sure that eventually someone who is not a developer can enjoy managing their online presence. And the only way to do that is by having a great editor experience. So make sure to prioritize that. Take the time to discover all the built-in feature in Umbraco. Make a dummy installation that you can break, just click everywhere, see what actually happens, what can you do. That's a great way to learn. And then learn to tailor Umbraco. It's very easy. Again, you don't need to be a .NET developer to do that. You can extend Umbraco with pure HTML and JavaScript. And before I finish, I have 30 seconds. Quick roadmap. What we're focusing on these days is what we call a better now. We think with 7.2 we got the features we needed, new fancy features. Now it's all about stabilization. It's been that since the fall. And we think with 7.2.2 it's looking quite good, quite polished and stable with these of 7.2 now. Our next priorities is about cleaning up the code. If you ever try to work with the source code of the core, it's almost redundant. There's all my old code, which is there for legacy purposes, and then there's almost code that does the same. It's about 1/10 of the size. But we can't get rid of my code until we sort of jump to version 8, because it will break stuff. But once we do that, Umbraco will be much faster and easier to work with from a developer side of it. So that's one of the next things that's going to happen. Also likely that we want to take a look at the UX. It's been more than 2 years ago since we made it. We want to just polish it, make it look, and let's say, slightly better, have a bit more of identity in it. That would be nice. Future, we've been talking about this for ages, but one of the things we're also working on is segments in Umbraco, so you can have segments and variants of your content, whether that's for different types of users or different languages. It can be quite flexible, but the idea is that you can have one-to-one variations of your nodes. Again, we demoed it as a proof of concept at CodeGuard last year. If we want to do it right, again, it's going to be a breaking change, so that's post V7. Also want to have, one of my pet projects is the idea of having a really nice REST API for Umbraco. So if you actually combine that with the identity, then it's getting pretty easy to create hybrid apps using Umbraco as the data storage. So Android played with Ionic or something similar. Then if you can build Umbraco sites, then you could also create mobile apps, which is kind of nice. And that's a focus area as well. And then much further down the line, cross-platform version of Umbraco. There's a new version of ASP.NET coming, ASP.NET 5. It could have been called ASP Million. It has almost nothing to do with ASP.NET. It's totally not backwards compatible. But the cool thing is that it considers mono a first-class citizen, which means that we could actually have Umbraco running on Macs, which is a big deal. A lot of Umbraco people are using Macs. So it's not going to be something you're going to see this year, but it is something that we are monitoring. And we're actually working closely with the ASP.NET team at Microsoft in finding out what it takes. But more important than anything else, we don't want to be the company that builds Umbraco behind curtains, because then we're just going to have another V5. We don't want to go there. I think it took 10 years of all of our lives, so just planning on making it to 40 would be nice. But the idea is we need to make sure that the roadmap becomes public and up to date. It's a much bigger task than first anticipated to actually have a live working roadmap, but we're working on it. We're also interviewing our Go partners to hear what should we prioritize. That's some of the stuff we're doing as well. To sort of collect both information from the community, which is usually a lot of dev stuff. We also want to talk to the partners who are actually using Umbraco to get the idea of what does the market need for a system like Umbraco as well. Then publish our sprint minutes. We run everything in the HQ as in Scrum, do 2 weeks, 2-week sprints. We actually want to have the sprint minutes of what we're doing public, so it's something we're working on as well. And then finally, we want to get back, when we started Umbraco, future ambitions of Embargo. We actually want to get back to that. Some of it is going to be with just me and Per Mobley in the lounge area, which is always fun for us. But we also want to have more interactive kind of hangouts, so you don't have to come to the office in Denmark, but you could also participate in something else. But to sum it all up, I don't think there's ever been a better time being involved in Embargo. We still have massive growth. It's even growing faster the first couple of months this year. I still think we're the friendly CMS. Again, as I said, for me and Per, it's not about building a huge company. It's about building a great product, community first, and then get a great company because of that. And I think most importantly, Per and I had a chat, what was it, 18 months ago, where we were like, this project is getting very big and very serious. There's a lot of people relying on this. And there was some people or companies interested in acquiring Embargo. We were like, should we go that line, or do we still think that there's stuff that, can we manage this project? Because it's actually quite difficult now. It's not just fun anymore to have a project used by more than 250,000 sites. It's also fun, but it's also a lot of hard work. But we were like, there's so much stuff we still need, we still want to do. So we were like, hell no, we're never going to sell this. We're just going to keep doing this, and then we're just going to make sure that we do the stuff that we love as well, which really is share simplicity. This is what the project is all about. So make sure you do that in North America as well, and thank you very much. I don't have time for questions, but I brought Danish ammonia licorice, which I planned to hand out to the best questions, so I'm just going to throw it out now. There's a catch. It's not going to tell you. Watch out there. And now I'm ready for the NFL.
All right, everyone, it's coffee up next. But before we do that, I want to let you know how we're breaking apart for the next thing. We're going to have 2 rooms. This one, I would be in talking about mullets as a metaphor, not just mullets, but also mullets, for using Embargo in the back office and back end, communicating with that front end via an API for kind of more lightweight sort of applications. And additionally, over in, it's not Pelican, Peacock. 1 in 10 Peacock rooms, which are